Hi everyone, so today we're going to be, I know that tomorrow is the start, in about 24 hours, it is actually the start of the Iowa caucuses. But I've already done a prediction video on that. I'll go briefly into Iowa in this video, but the most part of this video, I'm going to be taking a look at the national polling. I've already done my main Iowa prediction. And I believe I had Bernie in first, Biden in second place, Pete Buttigieg in third place, and Elizabeth Warren in fourth place, and Amy Klobuchar in fifth place, which lines up perfectly with the polling data. Now, Democratic presidential nomination, two big themes that I'm seeing. Theme number one, Michael Bloomberg rising, passing Pete Buttigieg now. Theme number two, which is probably more important, Bernie Sanders surge. Take a look at this. This is going all the way back to December of 2018. They were both sort of holding steady. Sanders announced, he surges, and then Biden announces, and then boom, he goes back down. And then Sanders, he had really been sort of struggling to get out of that sort of 15 to 17%, but then all of a sudden, December 8th was pretty much the day where he started this ascending climb up to the top. And this is very interesting because if you take a look just at this period of the climb, Joe Biden hasn't really moved that much. He started at 27%. Now he's at 27.2, barely anything. Bernie is the one that's surging 16% all the way up to 23.5%. Elizabeth Warren going from 14% to 15%, not really changing anything either. Pete Buttigieg, this is probably where Sanders is getting at least some of his support, 11.4% down to 6.7%. And another area where I think Sanders might be getting some of his support, people like Tulsi Gabbard, right? Tulsi Gabbard, she has gone from 2.3 all the way back down to 1.5, just as an example of Congresswoman Gabbard. That's probably also where Sanders might be getting a bit of his voters from. But it seems like people are really coalescing around these two ideological poles of the party, of Sanders and Biden. You know, centrists migrating towards Biden. People like Buttigieg moving away from Buttigieg towards Biden. Steyer people moving towards Joe Biden. And Klobuchar people. Klobuchar has seen a bit of a climb, but still, people seem to be coalescing around the former Vice President Bernie Sanders. I mean, people seem to be coalescing around Bernie as well as the progressive standard bearer for the Democratic Party. If you take a look when Warren was at her peak here, Sanders was at his worst point in the campaign. Sanders is at 14.6%, and while Warren was at 26.6%. Then you can pretty much see they met here at November 20, so Sanders sort of gained from October 6 to November 20, while Warren saw a steep fall. Warren continued her fall, and then Sanders is now the one rising, a bit like Warren. But as you can see, Sanders' gain is not as it's not as sort of vertical, it's not as drastic as Warren's was. She went from September 15 to October 8, which is in the space of about 2 or 3 weeks. She climbed from 16 to 26 by about 10 points, which is very impressive. But then she just saw all of those gains just slide right out the window. So Biden is seeing one of his worst points, in my opinion, of the campaign. This was one of his worst points where Warren overtook him for one day in the national polls. But this, I think, could be another worst moment for the former vice president, because Bernie, he is at his heels. He is just up 3.7%. If you take a look, this is how much Biden has led over Bernie. So Biden plus 23%. And if people are saying, well, will Biden, will he fall? This is Biden falling. While it doesn't seem, oh, look, he's staying sort of at the same percent. His fall is going to be when someone is able to catch him up in the national polls And it looks like Bernie's going to do that because if you take a look, this is from where he started sort of his surge. If you take a look at Biden's lead, it's gone from 12% down to 10%, down to 8%, staying there for a little bit, down to 9%, 8%, 7.8%, 6.5%, 6%, 7%, 6%, just 5% lead now, and now it's down to just 3.7. Bernie's really at his heels here. So two main takeaways from the national polls. That's one of them. Michael Bloomberg rising. I mean, I don't think people are paying enough attention to this. Michael Bloomberg, when he jumped into the race, he started really sort of slowly, if you will. He started, take a look at this, I'm trying to find the yellow, 2.5%. He surged all the way up past Kamala Harris, and then there you go. This was the day when he passed January 20, and now he's sort of quite ahead of Mayor Michael Bloomberg. Actually, Pete Buttigieg is almost, if you will, at some kind of similar support to Andrew Yang compared to Michael Bloomberg. So people always say, oh, Andrew Yang, and then people always lump Buttigieg in with the top three. It's not going to happen. He's at 6.7%. He is sliding. He's not going to do it. The reason why people are talking about Buttigieg is because in Iowa, he once upon a time led quite a few of these polls. If you take a look, this is the period where he was leading, and then Bernie overtook him. Sorry about that. Max that back out. But it's gonna be interesting because Bernie Sanders 24.2%, Biden at 20%, Buttigieg at 16%, Warren at 15%. I think Sanders. I'm not gonna say it's a done deal for Sanders, but I think there's a pretty good chance that he holds on to Iowa. But here's the thing, and I'm pretty sure Biden will be in second. My big thing is, will Warren earn enough delegates to be viable? That's the big thing. Can she get over 15% to be viable for delegates? Another thing, I had predicted the order would be Sanders 1, Biden 2, Buttigieg 3, Warren 4. But there is a chance, look at all of this Buttigieg sliding. There is a chance that Warren actually comes in third and then Buttigieg comes in fourth, which would be devastating for the Buttigieg campaign. He really needs to hold on to the state of Iowa, at least. I mean, for his campaign to be viable, he really sort of needed to win Iowa. It's not going to happen, but another thing to take a look at is Amy Klobuchar. I mean, she's at 8.6%. She will take away votes from Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren, and Pete Buttigieg. And so, I mean, how does that play out? Another thing to consider, she is taking away votes. But if Klobuchar doesn't get to that 15%, where will her voters go? They could migrate to Biden. That's the big question mark. However, Sanders can also count in the bag that let's say Klobuchar's at 8.6. Let's be generous and say 5% of Klobuchar's support goes over to Biden. Now he's at 25.2%, and now he's the winner, right? Okay, and now let's say 3.6%. Let's say 2% goes to Warren and 1.6% goes to Buttigieg. I don't think many Klobuchar supporters are going to switch to Sanders. They're sort of ideological opposites, right? Then, Warren and Buttigieg get a bit of a bump. But Sanders can also count in the bag that Andrew Yang, who's at 3.8, likely most of their voters going to migrate to Sanders. Same thing with Tulsi Gabbard at 1.2. Her voters probably going to vote for Bernie Sanders. If you combine their support, they get to exactly 5%, which is the same amount that Biden would increase. Now, you can expect some of them, they're not going to support Bernie, but I think that it will be enough. And if I'm getting a bit too theoretical here, if, let's say, 5% of Klobuchar's support goes to Biden, he's at 25.2. Sanders is 1 point behind, right? And if there's 5% worth of Yang and Gabbard supporters, I'm going to bet probably about 3%. That 3% of the vote's going to migrate to Sanders, which means Sanders goes a tiny bit on top. And then you also have to consider higher turnout. I mean, Bernie's whole thing is going to be, we're going to bring in new voters who aren't even being calculated by the polls in the first place. So there's a lot of variables. Overall, I think they favor Sanders, and I think he's the favorite going into Iowa. So that's it for today's video, guys, taking a look at national polls and Iowa. So obviously, final Iowa prediction: Sanders first, Biden second, Buttigieg third, Warren fourth, Klobuchar in fifth. And I'm not going to make predictions for the others because their support really sort of is a bit negligible, if you will. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.